fire up all across the fruited plains of the internet before we go ahead and get started. You know how it is after the weekend. Cobwebs are on the intertubes, and we got to make sure we can shake them off a little bit so we can get right down to business. But it looks like things are alive and well, so that means we can go ahead and get started. So let's do it, shall we? Hello, my friends, and welcome back to yet another episode of Watching the Watchers Live. My name is Robert Gouveia. I'm a criminal defense attorney at the R&R Law Group in the always beautiful and sunny Scottsdale, Arizona. And today we're celebrating Insurrection Week. That's right, on Thursday, we've got the January 6th Select Committee going to be out there really cramming all of our faces in this dead horse just over and over and over. It's been like 18 months now. They can't let it go. Everywhere you look on the media today, turn on Drudge Report, go on CNN, everybody's hemming and hawing over this big hearing that's supposed to come out on Thursday, and they're going to just spill the goods. They're going to bring down the entire House. The whole Trump debacle is going to come crashing down upon all of us in America because they've got the goods. That's right. And we've got to preview exactly what's going on so that we don't get blindsided by all of these just really excellent arguments that I'm sure we're going to hear. And so we've got a lot to get to. Now, ordinarily, we've got some slides and PowerPoints and things we go through for these types of stories. But because these tentacles are starting to grow, we had a great suggestion last week. I think it was from Jeremy, who said, you know, we should start organizing this into a mind map. And of course, that's exactly what we did here over the weekend. Now, I had been assembling a lot of this, one sort of for all of the various cases. I had a January 6th mind map going. I had a Steve Bannon mind map going. We had a Ray Epps mind map going. But now we're consolidating them all into one because it's really one big story. And once you could lay them all out on the same page, you can kind of see what happens. And we are going to go through that in depth today. So some of this may be repeat material, but we got to get up to speed because there's a big hearing coming out on Thursday, and they've got a producer. They've got somebody who used to work at ABC, who's like this big documentary guy, is going to come out. They're going to have some live witnesses. All the media are supposed to be there and a part of this, and it's just supposed to be the biggest show. Now, part of the reason is because nobody's paying attention to this. We've covered this here on this channel for, well, since day one. And many people have checked out of the January 6th thing a long time ago. And man, I wasn't even going to cover it, but it is literally everywhere. Like, I think it's literally live. Let me go to Drudge Report. Yeah, here it is. Boom. Right on Drudge. There it is. January 6th panel plans a blockbuster hearing. Ex-ABC executive is producing it. Will America tune in? That's the big question, America. Will you tune in? Well, I don't know. I hope so, because we're going to tune in. We're going to watch it live here on Thursday. And I'd love for you to join us on that while we just dunk on all of these dorks. And they are some of the biggest dorks in the Democratic Party and the political party. And we're going to break down exactly what is going on. So as is usual, let's go through the mind map. And I want to start off by taking a sort of a zoomed out approach, right? This is a mind map, but we can think about it like a map, like on Google. If you're trying to navigate somewhere, we can zoom in and we can zoom out. You can see right at the center of this thing, we've got the actual central node, January 6th. This is that fateful day. And what we're trying to do here is anticipate some of the arguments that are going to be coming out of this House Select Committee here on Thursday and sort of pre-butt them, you know, a little pre-buttal action, see if we can anticipate some of their arguments and see if we can just take a, you know, peaceful political bat and just whack them right out of the park. But we'll do that here in a minute. But first, we have to understand really what the consequences of this are. January 6th, of course, was a pivotal moment in modern politics because of the catastrophic, enormous shift that it caused. And it's sort of reorienting, it's causing the different political parties to realign to some degree. So we want to spend a quick minute understanding exactly how this all came to be. January 6th took place. We'll move past that, of course. But then there was this big call to do something about it. And this is something I get really critical about here on the show a lot, making fun of all the politicians. Every time there's some sort of tragedy or some sort of something, everybody just has to do something. And so what do congressional people do? They're bureaucrats. They form a committee. Okay, great. And they're going to go investigate all of these things and give us some answers as the American people. Well, these committees have to be lawfully constituted. Before we can start prosecuting all sorts of individuals for contempt of Congress and other things, we have to make sure that the law that these people are indicted under is actually legitimate. And we talked about a lot of this last week. We were covering the Peter Navarro indictment in detail, reading through that entire indictment. We're going to see he's actually one of the people who is smack dab right in the middle of these prosecutions. But before any of that, I always like to remember and refresh our recollections here to recall exactly why this House Select Committee is so illegal, why it's so unlawfully constituted. And I made this point last week on Friday, so I won't belabor it too much. But here, recall that the House, after January 6th, they passed H.R. 503. This is the document. This is the power. This is the law. If you get charged with a DUI, you're violating a state statute. It's a DUI law. You have to violate that law. That's the crime. Here, they're saying now that they are violating the subpoena power that emanates from this law. The committee was lawfully embodied under this provision, H.R. 503. It passed into the House, and now they've got legitimacy, according to them. Last week, we spent some time on this and pulled this up. This is the actual text of H.R. 503. Here's what it says under the composition, section 2. It doesn't say may, like you have some discretion about creating this committee. It says shall. The Speaker shall appoint 13 members to the select committee, 5 of whom shall be appointed after consultation with the minority leader. Shall designate 1 member to serve as the chair, that's Benny Thompson, and so on and so forth. So it's 13 members, 5 of whom are from the minority party, represented by, in other words, the Republicans. That's from the bill. That's what was passed into law. That's what they signed, and that's what they are referring to in their indictments. The problem with all of that is that the committee is not constituted under those terms. So on the mind map, and I forgot to mention this, by the way, this mind map is available. We sort of upgraded a little bit. You should be able to go to j6mindmap.com. So j6mindmap.com, which I just threw in the chat. If you pin that up there, well, I don't know if that's going to, oh, great. Guess I didn't do that one right. But it should take you there directly to the mind map if you want to go check that out. So it's www.j6mindmap.com. And I just set that up right before the show, so hopefully that works. And I think I just pinned it there. All right, so that's what's going on there. So if you want to follow along at home, you can go to j6mindmap.com and check that out. But this is how this body is actually constituted. It's not lawful. Here, you see, we have 7 Democrats. This is the Democratic part of the committee. Here are the Republicans. We've got 2 of them. The only 2 Republicans, not 5 from the minority party, are Liz Cheney and Adam Kinzinger. We'll come back to them. But the full committee is constituted here by Benny Thompson, Chairman Benny Thompson, and we learned a little bit more about him. He's from Mississippi. We've got Zoe Lofgren, another Democrat from California, Elaine Luria. She's from Virginia. Pencil neck Adam Schiff is here. He's also from California. We've got Pete Aguilar. I think he's also a California guy. We've got Stephanie Murphy from Florida, and then Jamie Raskin. And so they're all gearing up for this big event on Thursday. So they're like out there, you know, doing their warm-ups. You have Benny Thompson, you know, probably has his elastic band stretching out, you know, whatever's going on. Jamie Raskin's greasing his hair up. Pencil neck Adam Schiff is stretching out his neck. They're all out there warming up. It's like that scene from Rocky. They got their big day on Thursday, and they're trying to get all into gear. So that's what's happening. Now, Liz Cheney and Adam Kinzinger, they're both out there. They're going to be gone largely next year. We know Adam Kinzinger is out of here. We heard this back on October 10/29. They've got a story over from Politico here. This was telling us that Adam Kinzinger was on his way out. Revealed the decision in a 5-minute direct-to-camera video. This was last year, back October 29, 2021. So basically, every single minute of this guy's remaining term is to just go and be a pain in the butt to Donald Trump. What's he doing? He's auditioning for whatever the next gig is. He's going to retire at the end of his term and probably end up on MSNBC standing next to Jen Psaki. Then maybe they'll have a show together. They can sort of, you know, pass the football and play patty cake with each other on primetime with nobody watching. But that's Adam Kinzinger. He's gone. And that was largely because of the redistricting that took place in his hometown. They're basically, they said, you're gone. No more district. Can't run again. Or you can, but you've got to run in another district where there's probably going to be some difficult reelection chances for you. So he's over there going through that difficulty in his reelection campaign. But Liz Cheney's also another Republican, and she's also having a very difficult time. So she came out and said this on Sunday. I'm going to play that real quick. I think that'll play here. But she also is having a very difficult time with her reelection Here, she is down. I take a look at this number. It says the primary poll, she's running against Harriet Hageman out in Wyoming. She's got 56% of the vote, according to Politico, whereas Cheney's only got 26%. So, like, not good numbers for old Liz Cheney, which is, okay, well, sorry. She'll be on her way out. So I guess what that means is that come next year, come turn of the year, when these people are out, this committee is going to be even more unlawful. It's even going to be more illegal. It's already outside of the requisite composition. And so now, once you get rid of those two, I guess, alleged Republicans, they're going to now be just only Democrats. And that's the committee. This is what's happening in America. Now, this committee is, as I said, unlawfully constituted. But what they have still nevertheless done is they have subpoenaed a bunch of people. And we talked about this on Friday, a big sort of request that I had for people who were sitting here saying, Rob, this was an insurrection. They almost left with that podium and they almost wrecked America. Maybe you should take this a little bit more seriously. And I say, okay, yeah, maybe there were some violent people there. Okay. And how many? We look at the numbers and we sort of knock that one out of the park as it is. But they also will just really want to spend time on the ridiculousness of Donald Trump and all of this stuff. Okay, let's set all of this aside for just a quick minute. What happens if we just flip this on its head? We reversed the roles in this whole saga. Donald Trump's in power. We fast forward to 2025. Donald Trump's in power. It's his Department of Justice. He's got the House of Representatives. He's got the Senate. He's got all the levers of power. Already he's got the Supreme Court. And what happens if he wants to go form his own stupid committee to investigate, I don't know, maybe, Michael Sussman or something related to that. He's already been charged. Maybe we go after Mark Elias or something like that, right? And then that turns into a whopper of subpoenas for everybody who used to be at the FBI. And we know from the trial in Michael Sussman that all of that worked its way up to Hillary Clinton and Robbie Mook and all these people. And they were communicating with everybody else. And so the Republicans can take this committee and they can go do the exact same thing to the Democrats. They can create their own fake committee and go investigate all of them to the end of the earth and demand their phone records and all of their data and all of their emails and all of this stuff. And ordinarily, you'd hear from me, that's insane. This is ridiculous in America. That should never happen. But if the Republicans do that now, it's like, well, I guess what took you so long, idiots, because they're doing it. It's like, if you want to survive in this country as a political party, you've got to do those things. Now, I said long ago that that's not really good for America, but I guess if that's, something that contributes to the continual dismantling or minimization of the federal government, maybe that's not such a bad thing, but you get into dicey waters when you start broaching that topic. But I digress. We're going off on a tirade here. There's a lot to get to. Now, as I said, if we just put the shoe on the other foot, if we said, what if this were all Republicans? Everybody would be screaming about this. If this were Donald Trump with his own fake Republican committee going after everybody, it would be bananas out there. But because it's the Democrats, it's going to be all over primetime TV. It's going to be all over, all of the social media networks. It's going to be boosted up on all the algos, and we're going to be seeing it for the rest of the week, which is why we called it Insurrection Week here. So we see this is the makeup of the committee. Now, they are literally, right, subpoenaing the opposing party. So for those of you who have missed this, now we have not, I don't think, covered this on this channel, but they subpoenaed their fellow sitting members of Congress. Okay, so these Democrats and these two fake Republicans are now subpoenaing the records of their fellow Congresspeople, right? We're not even talking about the criminal charges yet, right? We're not even there yet. These are just civil subpoenas, and these have gone out very, very recently. Actually, on May 12th, less than 1 month ago, we see here that Benny Thompson and this fake select committee sent a demand over to these 4 Republicans. Now, I'm not in love with these Republicans, all right, but this is something that I think is so reprehensible because it's using the levers of government to go after your political opponents. And if the Republicans did it, it'd be equally reprehensible. And they're going to do it, Democrats. So if you're doing cartwheels, excited over this hearing, the Republicans are going to do it again, and they should. Otherwise, they're going to get evaporated. So they've got Representative, the House Minority Leader, Kevin McCarthy, got a subpoena from his political oppositional party. Same thing with Jim Jordan, Mo Brooks from Alabama, Scott Perry from Pennsylvania, and Andy Biggs from Arizona. Shout out to Arizona. All of them got subpoenas. Now let's take a look at what this says. Here is the letter that actually came from, this is the press release that came from the fake select committee back on May 12th. They write, Chairman Benny Thompson announced that the select committee subpoenaed all of those 5 individuals, saying they want their deposition testimony as part of the committee's investigation into the J6 attack. Thompson said the following: the select committee has learned that several of our colleagues have information relevant to our investigation into the attack on J6 and the events leading up to it. So like everybody's just okay with one political party just saying, well, we think it's relevant. So we want it from our political opponents. Before we hold our hearings next month, they said, meaning this Thursday, we wish to provide members the opportunity to discuss these matters with the committee voluntarily. Regrettably, the individuals receiving the subpoenas today have refused, and we forced to take this step to ensure the committee uncovers facts concerning J6. We urge our colleagues to comply with the law, do their patriotic duty, and cooperate with our investigation as hundreds of other witnesses have done. Like, you... What is this? It sounds like it's right out of 1984. It's like, do your patriotic duty, and you better come show up at our committee and listen to everything we want from you. Other people have done it. You better do it too. And if you don't, we're going to charge you with the crime, right? That's the consequence here. Peter Navarro, Steve Bannon, other people have, and look, they're not sitting Congress people. Okay. Peter Congress is not a sitting congressperson anymore. Steve Bannon was an advisor, not elected to office. Both those guys got subpoenas, failed to comply with them according to the House, and then they got charged with crimes as a result of that, right? That's insane on its own. But what's happening here, these are sitting Congress people. So you have one political party taking gobs of power that they don't really have and turning these into criminal prosecutions of their political enemies. And everybody's just like, okay, yeah, no problem. I mean, it was an insurrection, Rob. After all, that guy did take the podium. You know, he put his feet on Pelosi's desk, Rob. You have any idea how dangerous this could have been? They were in control of the House for like 4 hours. They delayed the certification by 4.5 hours, Rob. Take this more seriously. Give me a break. All right, so that's what's happening now. All of these people are the subject of a political civil war, I guess, going on, right? Literally using the levers of government to go and prosecute your political enemies. We'll see. We'll see what's going on here. But we know that some of Trump's political advisors, not necessarily elected House of Representatives officials, but others are getting prosecuted. And so let's jump on over to the other wing here on the prosecutions. Actually, before we do, let's take a look at Insurrection Night before we get too ahead of ourselves. Insurrection. So it's sort of Insurrection Week. I don't know if there's going to be anything else to talk about this week. I mean, I'm sort of tired of talking about January 6th just because it's like, I'd like to see some new data. I mean, we've covered it all. This mind map is going to be filled out to the max. I've got notes out the wazoo. I'll show you this. But regardless, right? We're going to see the same arguments from these same people because they're not that creative. They just keep coming up with the same stuff. There are a lot more videos, a lot more. I'll show you what the arguments might be. But before, here is James Goldston. All right. So this isn't just like Liz. This is going to be not a boring old House committee where they're just sitting there sort of, doing what they do. One congressperson interrupts another congressperson and it's extremely bored. It's going to be like a movie. They have James Goldston. This guy you see here, he's going to be a producer for Insurrection Night. So this is going to be just very exciting, almost like reality TV. Here's some of what they're going to try to accomplish here. This story came over from Axios, says that the J6 committee, as a totally legitimate government body, has turned to a renowned former network news executive to hone a mountain of explosive material into a captivating multimedia presentation for a primetime hearing on Tuesday. James Goldston, former president of ABC News and a master documentary storyteller who ran Good Morning America and Nightline, has joined the committee as an unannounced advisor. Goldstein is busily producing Thursday's 8 p.m. hearing as if it were a blockbuster investigative special. He plans to make it raw enough so that skeptical journalists will find the material fresh and chew over the disclosures in future coverage. As I said, nobody's paying attention to this. People are worried about their gas tanks being full and about their savings being evaporated through inflation. He wants it to draw the eyeballs of Americans who haven't followed the ins and outs of the Capitol riot. He's got a massive trove, says the hearing is going to be a mix of live witnesses and pre-produced video. I'm told the committee has gained access to official White House photographs from January 6th that have never been seen publicly. So are we going to see some more broken windows? Well, we may see some more feet on tables or something, more broken glass, more screaming, more shouting, more violent video footages from a couple scenes from 35 different angles, right? It's the same garbage. And I'm looking forward to it. We see that he also says only a fraction of the surveillance footage from inside the Capitol, all kinds of angles were captured, has been shown. So there may be more of that, we'll see. And many of the committee's depositions were videotapes. So we'll see clips of the depots. We have some more. Says an aides are reporting they've conducted more than 1,000 depots and interviews, 140,000 documents, 472 tips to the tip line. At least 2 broadcast networks are going to interrupt the evening programming. So it's going to be for live coverage. ABC's David Muir, whoever that is, CBS's Nora O'Donnell, and NBC is going to announce their plans soon. Okay, so all of the major media, major news agencies, right, are all going to break for this thing. Liz Cheney's going to speak. Benny Thompson's going to speak. Republicans are going to argue that the committee, which consists of 7 Democrats plus Liz Cheney and Kinzinger, is just out to get former President Trump. And Republicans are going to do a counter-programming blitz. Key members of Congress are already booked for cable interviews after the hearing. All right, so we'll follow along with all of that also and see what they've got out there. I'm not really too optimistic that the Republicans are going to do much about anything, just largely because I think a lot of Republicans were not too upset with January 6th. It really sidelined Donald Trump. And if Donald Trump's out of the equation, that's better for the Republicans. So for some of the Republicans out there. There was more from the Mindmap. That's James Goldston. He's going to be producing the whole thing, going to turn it into this giant hubbub. So we'll see what that looks like. And there's also some interesting story about the division amongst the committee members. And so I saw this article also from Axios. Axios had a couple scoops over the weekend. They came out and they said, this committee is just not really getting along. They haven't really decided what they want to do after this all concludes. I mean, other than Donald Trump going into prison and getting the death penalty execution chair, they haven't really decided how the rest of us should be disciplined, I guess, for not thinking right or something. So they're talking about how to rectify this problem so it doesn't happen again. And here was a story over from Axios, and I wanted to read through it just a little bit. Now that we're familiar about the makeup of the panel, there's all sorts of discrepancies about what to do. Here, there's behind the scenes. Nobody on the House Select Committee is more committed than Liz Cheney to pursuing Trump for inciting the attack on the Capitol, but she opposes some of the other reforms put forward by Democrats. Here we see a big difference between Cheney and Raskin. And so just for those of you unfamiliar, Raskin is the guy who looks like that right there. So these two people, we've got a Republican and a Democrat who are sort of, not really on the same page with one topic. Raskin's from Maryland. And we see Raskin, according to 3 sources familiar with the private discussions, the two have a warm personal relationship but disagree. Raskin is a constitutional law scholar. By far, the committee's most outspoken member said that during its private discussions about voting rights, Liz is much more conservative. In multiple conversations, Raskin has argued the Electoral College should be abolished, which is like a big deal. That if presidents were elected by a popular vote, this would protect future presidential elections against what Trump did. Cheney thinks that, no, that's going to burn the credibility. She's joked to her colleagues on the committee that there's no way the single at-large representative for Wyoming would support abolishing the Electoral College. Pencil neck Adam Schiff has spoken up in committee to concur with the problems on the Electoral College. So these people are going to fix our elections in America. You excited for that? Raskin wants the committee to endorse federal legislation to oppose voter suppression tactics and gerrymandering. He's an outspoken supporter for the Democratic Party Voting Rights Act. Cheney wants to discuss the Electoral Count Act. Cheney has discussed enhancing criminal penalties for supreme dereliction of duty. Other Democrats agree with a lot of this litigation or this legislation. Stephanie Murphy wants better coordination amongst intelligence communities probably for domestic homegrown extremists and people like that. For the committee to be successful, they say, quote, it has to look at all the ways in which somebody with the will can subvert the law, said a source close to this. We have to identify all the areas in which there are loopholes that a future president with somebody like the motives like Trump might try to exploit and overturn an election. The longer the J6 committee postpones making recommendations, the less likely those recommendations are going to come to pass. And if Kevin McCarthy becomes speaker next year, he's not going to do anything this committee recommends, which is true. Yeah, it's absolutely true. It's like they are in a hurry, my friends. They are in a real big hurry, because if the Republicans take control of the House, which everybody suspects that they will, this committee's going bye-bye. So they better get this thing done quickly. And since it's basically fake and everybody's acting as though it's real, they're just going to keep going with it. Why shouldn't they? So that's what's going on there. Now, I don't know what's going to come out of this committee. Probably a report, probably a bunch of nothingness, but they're going to try to get maximum media exposure out of it, because really, if they can't do anything consequential under the law, right? If they don't have the ability to actually go and evaporate the Electoral College, right? Which they really don't, is this little committee. What do they want to do? Rub everybody's noses in it for as long as they can, as hard as they can, and get the maximum political benefit out of it. And that's exactly what's happening here. So let's take a look at how they are doing that. And then we'll preview some of the arguments that I think are going to come out on Thursday. Got a whole list of these arguments, and we'll start to sort of dissect those. And then I'll show you some of my notes. I got a whole slew of notes that I think might be fun to add to the mind map. But we've got a lot of heavy lifting still left to go here. And I want to show you what's going on with the prosecutions. Okay, now this is the strong arm of the government going after political opponents. I've said about a lot of these January 6 prosecutions, I've sort of made fun of the DOJ for many reasons. One of them being they're turning this like into the prosecutorial endeavor of a lifetime. I mean, it's really shocking how much they're talking about how hard all of this is. And I just checked this today, right? And take a look on the mind map here. I just looked this up. If you actually go and take a look at all the prosecutions on the mind map, there's a link right here, and it takes you to this page. I have the dark mode on, so let's whitelist this site. There you go. So you see, if you go to this site, it's actually at the DOJ. It has a full list of everybody who's been charged. Okay, they update this. And it's a lot, right? I'm scrolling. Oh my gosh, that's a lot of people. Look at all these protesters. Look at all these insurrectionist Trumpers, right? And if you add them all up, if you copy and paste the whole thing and you put them into a Google spreadsheet and you count all the rows, here's what you see. 796 defendants. And for those of you at home who don't have any context about, well, that kind of sounds like a lot, Rob. That's like a lot of defendants there. What are you talking about? That's like a big problem. You go, okay, well, yeah, it might be a lot, but it depends on context. And so previously on this channel, for those, I'm not going to do it here. Maybe I'll add it to the mind map at some point. But we have gone through and done a compare and contrast on this, right? If you go back to this stupid chart here and you take a look at most of these, okay, most of these are misdemeanors, right? And most of these are not even, crimes of violence. So here, we got like disorderly conduct, restricted building, parading around, right? So this is mostly somebody who's just entering. It's a trespass charge, okay? It's a trespass charge. Now, it happens to be a trespass charge on a pretty, contentious day at the Capitol building. And so some of those things might be aggravating factors to some degree, but it's a trespass charge. It's a disorderly conduct charge. That's it. This happens 1,000 times a night all across America. Every single old town jurisdiction, every single game, they're always playing some sport somewhere. Disorderly conduct, trespasses, probably a few hundred in every locale every night. It depends. Now, by way of comparison here on this channel, we did a deep dive and I went through, I'm a criminal defense lawyer in Scottsdale, Arizona at the R&R Law Group. We have a mission to help good people who have been charged with crimes to find safety, clarity, and hope in their cases and beyond that in their lives. We offer free case evaluations. Link is in the description below in my link tree or on YouTube. But when we are representing people, we see these types of cases very regularly, right? Disorderly conduct all the time. And it's not unusual at our local city prosecutor's office for them to process hundreds of misdemeanors every single month. Okay, this is 800 in 18 months, a year and a half of prosecutions. your local city prosecutor, depending on what size city you're in, is probably prosecuting, I don't know. Here in Arizona is about 700 a month. In Scottsdale, a month, 1 month. This has taken them 18 months. Okay, so a local city prosecutor's office can handle 800 misdemeanors, a month. They've got 10, 20 different prosecutors in there. They fly through them. This is the U.S. Justice Department. Bending themselves, asking for billions of dollars, taking over national media, commandeering the entire political narrative of the whole country for how many cases did I calculate? 796 defendants. Okay, out of a country of what, 340 million people? All right. On one day? Are you serious right now? And they're serious about this, right? They every time they get up behind the podium, they come out and they go, gosh, this is just a trying time for our DOJ and our FBI. It's just so dang difficult for us. It's mountains of, and I know there's a lot of discovery. Yes, I know there's a lot of video footage, government prosecutors. I get it. Organize it all. Give it to the defendants. It's not that complicated. Local city prosecutors can handle it. Go look at the DA's office in LA. See if they would have a difficult time with 800 misdemeanors. No, they wouldn't. Because they don't do it here in Phoenix, right? They would, it's like whatever. It's like another, the Super Bowl comes into town. There's an extra 800 misdemeanors, probably an extra 800 felonies that happen in any location, okay? And it happens all over this country, but these morons can't figure it out. All right, so I go on a tangent and a rant every time we get into that. I can't even take it. It makes me so mad. But anyways, all right. Let's take a look at the actual prosecutions. Now, not to mention, before I leave that point, many of these 796 defendants are still rotting away in solitary confinement, have gotten subpar treatment, substandard due process, and are being treated like mafia bosses for very, very insignificant crimes that would be treated like the standard trespass or disorderly conducts in any other jurisdiction in this country, except for the fact that they are in the DC circuit, and we know how that goes for them. Oh, God, it makes me so mad. All right, so now we need to see what's going on with the actual indictment. So we've got a big branch here in our mind map to get to. And here it is. The indictments. Now, this is going to make your blood boil even more, I know, but let's go through it. Now, here on this channel, we've spent a lot of time talking about Steve Bannon, right? This mind map was the one I already started creating, and you can see the tentacles here are sort of articulated moderately well, because Steve Bannon's trial is coming up very soon, actually. It's in July, and I think I have the timeline here. Let's break this out. When is the trial? Joint status report. Let's see. No. So it's in July. I don't know the exact date, but I have it written down somewhere. It might pop up in here at some point. But this was exactly what was going on. Okay, Steve Bannon, the same pattern we're going to see is something that it may or may not happen with these Republicans, right? The Republicans that I just went through from the House of Representatives, they got a letter saying, come and work with us. They didn't go work with them. And so they sent them a subpoena, right? This is the stage that they're at. It goes letter, subpoena, send a letter. If you ignore the letter, send a subpoena. Send a subpoena. If you ignore the subpoena, refer it over to criminal contempt proceedings or a criminal referral to the DOJ. They take it to the grand jury. They indict you. And then you get charged with the crime, right? So the Republicans are still sort of at that middle tier here. We don't know what's going to happen. We don't know whether McCarthy or Jim Jordan or any of these people are going to get indicted, but that's the stage that they're at. Now, some of Trump's former advisors, of course, are already beyond that stage. Bannon, for example, and Peter Navarro are two that we have covered thus far. Steve Bannon, the same thing happened, right? They sent him this letter back in September, and they said, hey, Steve, so-and-so, I'm Benny Thompson. We're fishing for all of this material, and the select committee's investigating the facts. We have reason to believe that you know something about this dangerous insurrection that's going to take out America. And so we demand now that you respond to us. And so what did Steve Bannon do? Well, he just didn't really respond by the document deadline. So what happened here is Benny Thompson is now, if we fast forward to October 8th, 2021. This is a 3-page letter. And he's saying, you accepted service of the subpoena. Your letter states that your basis for not working with our committee is because of the fact that Trump is invoking executive privilege. And so, of course, right, this is one of those main themes that we've been talking a lot about. Do Trump's advisors have executive privilege? can Donald Trump invoke it on, so as an extension, right? If Steve Bannon's out there in the world, can Trump say, okay, we have executive privilege, boom, activated, turn it on, force field up, Steve Bannon, Peter Navarro, Dan Scavino, Mark Meadows, you guys are all now force field protected by executive privilege. Can you do that? Trump says you can. And these people say you cannot. Furthermore, blanket assertions of this, such as those requested by Trump, have been rejected, says the January 6th committee, and saying this select committee has not received any assertion from Mr. Trump, right? They want Trump to invoke it on their behalf, and so on and so forth. So they say, please be advised that the select committee will view Mr. Bannon's failure to respond as willful noncompliance. His willful noncompliance with the subpoena is going to force us to invoke the contempt of Congress procedures, which could result in a referral to the DOJ for criminal charges, as well as having the possibility of a civil action brought, right? So that's the stage that Bannon was at. Bannon sends a letter. I think this was the deposition deadline that came out. This was a response. Yeah, this was from Bannon's lawyer. And so this was a hard document to get my hands on. So basically, Bannon's lawyer responded and said, you know, don't call us defiant. This is what we're doing. And so please be advised. Then they basically referred it over to the indictment, right? So we're following the timeline here. It's about a 4-month timeline, it looks like. Actually, a little bit longer than that. I'm sorry, less than that. So 9/23, then we're indicted just 2 months later. Okay, so if we're trying to maybe take that same framework, Bannon got a subpoena September 23. He was indicted by November 12. So 9/23, 10/23, 11. So like, you know, not even a full 2 months, like 6 weeks is what it took. And he denied it. So maybe we start to see same thing happen for the Republicans who are ordered to comply. Are they going to get charged in 6 weeks? Like 6 weeks from 5/12? I don't know. But the clock is ticking, as it should be, because the Democrats are in trouble come November. And if they don't have Kinzinger and Cheney on the panel anymore, that might be the end of this little fake January 6th select committee. All right. So we go back over to the Steve Bannon case, and that same pattern, right, is going to be something that we see. Same thing happened with Peter Navarro. Same type of story. Peter Navarro also got those documents, the letter, we demand you comply with us, didn't do it, got referred over for contempt. Now, they're all in the DC circuit. Steve Bannon is in front of Judge Carl J. Nichols, and the docket is pretty dead right now. It actually, let's see if we can pull this up. Yeah, so let's see here. The Steve Bannon docket, as of today, the only activity we had was really for May 25th. So that was just about coming up on 2 weeks ago. House Minority Leadership filing a brief, another amicus brief by House of Representatives. So this is interesting. Yeah, we've got people are filing amicus briefs on behalf of, to sort of a friend of the court to support Steve Bannon. We've got House Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy's filing a brief. These are motions to file the amicus. And so other people are piling in. The last thing that we talked about was Steve Bannon's motion to dismiss the case. And so we had a couple different filings on that. We should have oral arguments on that at some point. But this is the next case that's sort of getting hot right now. I think it's going to be coming up in July. And he filed a motion to dismiss. Government responded in a reply, and then we got a response from Steve. So not a lot of activity on that, but I think that one's going to start to pick up. And you recall, when we were covering Michael Sussman, it was a little bit slow, and then it got really fast, like really quickly. I'm not so sure we're going to see that exactly in these cases, because these are a lot less complicated, right? This is like one issue on all of these charges. Really, this is about, they got a letter, they didn't abide by the letter, and they're in trouble for not abiding by the letter. That's really it. The underlying argument that the committee is fake, right? That's a whole separate sort of legal argument that you can make in court. But this is not as complicated as Michael Sussman. We don't have multiple witnesses where we're going to have, you know, so-and-so testifying about this date and this record and this email and this calendar entry and so on and so forth. It's like one date, two things. You were supposed to show up. You were supposed to give testimony and provide documents. That's it. So we may not see a ton on this other than maybe some more actual legal heavy documents, motions to dismiss based on constitutional foundational issues. I think we'll see more of that. The judge in the Steve Bannon case is Carl J. Nichols. The prosecutors, we talked about some of the prosecutors, and I think it's the same prosecutor for Peter Navarro. I remember we found Amanda Rose Vaughn was one of the prosecutors for Steve Bannon. This was Steve Bannon's actual indictment here. And if you take a look, right, it's going to look identical to Peter Navarro's. Here, 2 counts, contempt of Congress for testimony, another one for papers. Didn't show up and testify, didn't deliver us the papers. And again, see here, they're referencing House Resolution 503. That's the basis for the law. That's where their power emanates from. It's like saying you can't drive drunk, right? There's a law that makes it illegal. There's a law that says you have to comply with this committee. It's House Resolution 503. Problem is, they're not abiding by that law. They're not in compliance with the proper formation of the committee. But they reference it in the indictments, which is like, okay. It's like, what are they doing? I don't know what's going on in DC, but they're all just, I guess the courts are just like, well, whatever, you know, the courts are going to make the defense raise the arguments, and the defense, I guess, are going to have to start raising those arguments. We'll see. Now, that was the actual indictment from Bannon, so we'll close out of that. Rose Vaughn, the reason I opened that was because Rose Vaughn was, I think, the person on that indictment, and I believe I saw her on, no, that's Graves. Where did I see Rose Vaughn on? She might have been on the arraignment. Let's take, yeah, here she is. In-person appearance. So when Steve Bannon first went to court, we saw U.S. Attorney Amanda Vaughn was there. That's where I got that name. So Amanda Vaughn is actually this woman here. And I found something about her. Went to Harvard. Oh, yeah, she went to Harvard. And she married this guy, John Daniel Wisloski. And Daniel Wisloski is, I think, the son of Pete Wisloski, who's a Democrat from Indiana, who is on the Defense Appropriations Subcommittee. Isn't that interesting? Isn't that interesting? So you have a Democrat from Indiana who's on the House of Representatives. I believe this is all true. Indiana's 1st district, not seeking re-election, going into retirement. Yeah, good call, because he's probably going to get blown out this election. But he is apparently the father of Pete Wisloski, who's married to Amanda Rose Vaughn, who is prosecuting the Republicans, which is great because it's perfectly in alignment with the family, you know. So you just see the Democrats are going after Republicans every which way they can. Now, that is on the Steve Bannon case. We talked about his defense team. David Scone was somebody who came from the impeachment proceedings. Same with Matthew Corcoran, I believe, and Robert Costello. So sort of Trump acolytes from, I think, impeachment number 2. On the defense team, we had some issues. There's the trial date. 7/18 is when we're queued up for trial. Let's see. Minute entry proceedings, jury trial, and jury selection starts on July 18th. So we've got just over a month away on that one. And Lorraine Herman. Yeah, we know that court reporter. She helped us on the Sussman trial. So, okay, so that's all coming up. That's Steve Bannon. Now, Bannon was sort of the first one who got thrown through the grinder on this. Peter Navarro is, right behind him on this. We talked about a lot about Peter Navarro last time. Not going to spend too much time on it here. We're going to jump into the Oath Keepers and to Proud Boys because they got indicted today also. But here was the indictment from Peter Navarro. And you can see same 2 charges, right? Count 1, contempt of Congress for papers. Count 2, contempt of Congress for testimony. Same exact thing as Steve Bannon. They're just going to give us different justifications for it. And once again, they're referencing House Resolution 503. That's the justification for their power. That's where they get the subpoena authority. And it's not even lawfully constituted. So not a surprise there. Peter Navarro was one of Trump's economic advisors. And I think I have the full video clip of him here. So if you want to watch
over a
some of that,
5-year period,
he gave a full statement there. That's available on the mind map at j6mindmap.com. If you want to poke around on the mind map at home. Now, the big news today was the Proud Boys got indicted. And this was one of those that was very curious. It's like, why did that take so long? And why did a lot of these take so long? One of the things that we didn't see a whole lot of from the J6 capital cases, like when we went up here, we didn't see, and we even did this on the show. Like, remember when we did Insurrection? Like these are all the January 6 cases, all of them, right? If we type in Insurrection and hit apply, oh, that's weird. Well, that's weird. No results found for this search. Well, that's weird. I thought that we had suffered an insurrectionary assault in this country. I mean, I thought that they were going to seize American control because that guy had that podium that one time. But I just searched every single Capitol Hill case, and nobody got charged with insurrection. Well, that's weird. I wonder what that is. Now, what they have done now, very recently, because people like me were giving them a lot of grief over this, is they were saying, well, we don't really charge insurrection, but what we do charge is seditious conspiracy. And so until very recently, there wasn't even this charge, but seditious conspiracy. We can hit an apply on this one. Let's see. Do we have it? Yes. Oh, here we go. So yes. Oh yeah. Yeah. Now we have it. And look who the first one is. Remember Thomas Caldwell? Let's do a quick search for Brave on this guy. Thomas Caldwell was this fella. Remember? And he was that very dangerous guy that they said was a very insurrectionary. And it turns out maybe not the case. Now, I referenced actually him down here because he talked about this in one of my notes. Remember, we spent a whole show on this guy, Thomas Caldwell, and in one of his motions, one of his footnotes, we saw this one. It said that his defense attorney noted that at least 20 FBI and ATF assets were embedded around the Capitol on January 6th. Discovery proves the Oath Keepers were being monitored and recorded prior to January 6th, says his defense lawyer. Yet they haven't found one iota of proof that the Rhodes or Crowell defendants had any intention to enter the Capitol building, right? So a lot of this will continue to come out. But that's the guy. That's the seditious conspiracy charge. He's been all over the media, very articulate guy. I think he's been all over Tucker and things like that. And he's fighting his case to show that, he basically everything that they said was not true. So that's one of those sedition charges. Now, these all just came out relatively recently. Like this were filed, accompanying indictment filed on 1/12/2022, right? So not that long ago. Okay. This happened January 6, 2021. That took over a year to file those charges. Here's another one, 1/12/112. The indictment returned a year later. Seditious conspiracy. And that's it. Okay. Like that's it, right? Of that whole page. Okay. So look, this is it. You can count them. You can count them together. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Oops. Dang it. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 cases, 12 seditious conspiracy cases. All right. Well done, everybody. Holy moly. And if you delete that and you take a look at the rest of the cases, there's 796 of them. Right. And most of these, as I said, some of these are violent. Okay. Inflicting bodily injury, for example. All right. Maybe that's one that requires a little bit more attention. But how about this? Knowingly entering or remaining without lawful authority. That's a trespass, right? That's a trespass. You go to a bar. They say, can you leave, sir? You've had a little too much to drink. And you say, no, man, I'm good. And you don't go anywhere. Guess what happens? You get asked to leave again. You don't. Typically, you get escorted out. And if you come back after that, then you're in trouble. That's a trespass, right? And here, it's not that dissimilar. Same story. Picketing in a Capitol building. Wow, crime of the century. Here's another one. Parading, demonstrating in a Capitol building. Wow. Obstruction of law enforcement during civil disorder. What? You didn't move out of the way because you got ordered to move out of the way? Right. All right. So some of them, as I said, deserve some attention, but most of them, not really. And then when you take a look at the actual sedition cases, there's 12 of them. Shocking. Well, absolutely amazing job, everybody over there at the FBI and the DOJ, doing really incredible work. All right. So now we see that, what is it now? June 6th. We're now almost a year and a half after the fact. New charges come down the pike. What are they? Well, they go after the Proud Boys this time. And they've already indicted the Oath Keepers. We've talked about this. Stewart, Rhodes, and the Oath Keepers were part of the original sedition conspiracy group that we talked a lot about here on this channel. They had the QRF, quick reaction forces, apparently, allegedly, according to the indictment. They were set up around the perimeter in DC on January 6th. They were about to scoop in there and seize control of the country and all this crap. Right now, every single time that we have seen something like this pop up in this case, there's always some interesting garbage that comes out of it, right? Now, for example, I'll give you this example. They indicted all these Oath Keepers. These Oath Keepers are these people. Let's go back here. You see Stewart Rhodes. We have seditious conspiracy. We go back. We see Thomas Caldwell. I saw Stewart Rhodes here. He is the leader of the Oath Keepers. You see him here. Seditious conspiracy and other charges. Arrested January 13, 2022. He is the leader of the Oath Keepers, allegedly, right? And if you pull open his case, they give you the indictment. Here it is. All sorts of different charges. Elmer Stewart Rhodes is up here along with everybody else. Conspiracy, 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 conspiracy. And what's the conspiracy? They wanted to stop the transfer of power in 2021 or in 2020 for the presidential election. We've covered this case at length. Stewart Rhodes indicted, charged with a bunch of other guys for seditious conspiracy. Now, what's pretty interesting here is you'll notice on this January 6th mind map, we don't have a whole lot about the old Ray Epps on here. Remember old Ray Epps? Ray Epps is conveniently absent from this. Well, have no fear, my friends, because I haven't had time to build it out, but we will. Here is Ray Epps. Now, Ray Epps, you may remember, was the guy that was there on, I think that was the west side of the Capitol building, right at the first point of breach. And he was also somebody who showed up on the FBI most wanted list until he wasn't on the list anymore. He was on there as entry number 16. We wanted this guy badly. And then the FBI just updated their tweets, and conveniently, old Ray Epps is not there anymore. Isn't that curious? Because we have video, and I have all of it. I just haven't added it to this yet, but we're going to build this little Ray Epps part out pretty in depth. But Ray Epps was there on the west side of the Capitol that day. He was there the night before. All sorts of interesting activities, but the FBI just lost interest in him all of a sudden. Wonder why that could be. But they did actually, I think, kind of miss something here. We spent a lot of time on this. Remember this march here in Arizona? Remember these two guys palling around together? Didn't get a lot of attention elsewhere in the media, but something I like to go to frequently. I don't know when this video came out, but we had this full video. We played it here. Look at these two people. That is Stewart Rhodes of the Oath Keepers. This is in Arizona. They're walking down the street somewhere. I think it's a memorial service for a fallen soldier or something like that. And this is Stewart Rhodes in the blue. You see the American flag, the Arizona flag. We have the gentleman standing next to him, big and tall, is Ray Epps. Okay? They're buddies. They're both Oath Keeper members. And I've got all sorts of photographs to confirm that. Here's another one. Ray Epps is standing literally right behind Stewart Rhodes at this ceremony. And here's another one. They're walking right next to each other. Now, there's also, I think I have other photographs. I'm not sure that I actually uploaded them, but they're hosting events at local lodges here in the place. They're buddies. But Ray Epps didn't get indicted, but he was there, and he was there at the first breach. He was there the night before. The FBI charged him. I'm sorry, the FBI listed him, but didn't charge him. But they got the other Stewart Rhodes people. But these two were buddies. It goes back some time ago to Arizona. So that's interesting, right? We saw that. That's weird. It's like everywhere you turn around on J6, there's like feds all over the place, right? We just saw from the other motion from the defense attorney, he said there were 20 ATF and FBI agents in the Thomas Caldwell case all over the place. They were monitoring the Oath Keepers before January 6th even took place, according to that defense attorney, and there were feds all over the place. We've got photographs that Ray Epps and Stewart Rhodes are buddies and have been marched together as members of the Oath Keepers. But maybe that's just a fluke. Maybe that's just one conspiracy group that's just, one off. It's just the Oath Keepers. Maybe it's just them. But today we had a new indictment come down the pike. It is now the Proud Boys, which is apparently, according to most common knowledge, a very racist white supremacist organization that happens to have a non-white person called Enrique Tarrio as the leader of the organization, which is a weird thing for a white supremacy group. But here He got charged, as did many other Proud Boys, with a slew of charges. The DOJ came out today, and let's take a look at this, see what they have to say for us. They tell us that on today, Monday, June 6th, leader of the Proud Boys and 4 other members indicted in federal courts for seditious conspiracy and other offenses. So I guess this list is going to get a little bit bigger. They're going to add 5 more people to the list of 12 for seditious conspiracy. So we'll be up to, wow, we're getting close to 20 seditious conspirators. 20 of them. Wow. Wonder if they, that's not even enough people to form your own cabinet. Crying out loud. Good Lord. All right. So the DOJ, very excited with themselves. New charges in a superseding indictment. Federal grand jury in D.C. returned a superseding indictment today, charging 5 members of the Proud Boys, including a former national chairman, Enrique Tarrio, with seditious conspiracy and other charges for their actions before and during the breach of the Capitol. Their actions disrupted a joint session of Congress that was convened to count the votes. Okay, as I said, it was like 4-hour delay on the whole thing. The defendants include Enrique Tarrio. We have another person named Ethan, Joseph, Zachary, Dominic Pizzola, who we've talked about here on this channel before. They pled not guilty to all the charges. Superseding indictment adds 2 charges to the earlier indictment, 1 count of seditious conspiracy, 1 count of conspiracy to prevent an officer from discharging their duties. All defendants now, so they just added charges. Pizzola faces a robbery charge. The defendants are scheduled to appear on June 9th. So it really is Insurrection Week this week. My goodness. So they are going to have their initial appearance on Thursday, the 9th, which is the same day as Insurrection Day. Isn't that convenient? Isn't that convenient? I wonder if they timed that. Yeah, because they'll be in court, okay, on Thursday. They'll go through all the proceedings. There'll be all this news. Proud Boys appeared in court. Judge set whatever bond, you know. And then their show on cable that they're paying for to have produced is going to be available then at 5 p.m. Arizona to 8 p.m. Eastern. Yeah, so court will be closed over there. Good timing for them. You kind of want to sync that up if you're going to have a big debut. So that is from the Justice Department. Now, I want to go through the indictment briefly so we can see exactly what's going on here before we take a look at a little bit more at our pal Enrique Tarrio. Here is the actual indictment. You can see all 5 of those individuals there. And I saw a super chat come in. I think I saw that. Yeah, Tara Rayner says Tarrio was arrested when he arrived in D.C., I believe. Was he arrested? Yeah, Tarrio was arrested. There was something interesting about Tarrio. We're going to get into Tarrio here in a minute. But let's see, Enrique Tarrio. Let's see what this arrest looks like. Enrique Tarrio, here on Wikipedia, March 14th. Yeah, so he may have been charged with conspiracy prior to that. I'm not real sure. Here's what Wikipedia says. Yeah, so we'll get into that in a minute. Let me go back to the indictment. We'll break down what's going on with Tarrio here. But here you see him actually here, Enrique Tarrio, counts 1 through 9, all of these things. Seditious conspiracy, obstructing official proceedings, aiding and abetting the obstruction, conspiracy to prevent an officer from doing his duties, obstruction of law enforcement, destruction of government property, assaulting, resisting certain officers, and robbery. Right now, Tarrio didn't get number 9. The only person who got number 10 is Dominic Pizzola. Spaz is the name that he goes by. And so they just keep adding charges, right? Here's another thing that they added. They tell us on the 3rd, November 3rd, we had an election. Constitution tells us how to run our elections. On December 14th, the electors came together to declare Joe Biden won. 12th Amendment requires the vice president to do certain things. Here we have some background now. All 5 of these guys, Enrique and others, created a group joined a group called the Proud Boys. Describes itself as a, quote, pro-Western fraternal organization for men who refuse to apologize for creating the modern world, aka Western chauvinists. Proud Boy members routinely attend rallies, protests, and other events, some of which have resulted in violence involving members of the group. There's an initiation process and members wear black and yellow polo shirts adorned with logos and slogans. Through at least January 6, Tarrio was the national chairman of the Proud Boys organization. Throughout the U.S., there are local Proud Boys chapters led by presidents. Each chapter has a degree of autonomy, and they give us some more about these guys. So Ethan Nordian, he was the president of his local chapter in Washington. Biggs, 38 years old, organized Proud Boy events. We have Zachary, 36, Philadelphia, president of his local chapter. Tarrio, 38, Miami, president and national chairman of the Proud Boys. Spazzo Pizzola, 44-year-old out of Rochester, member of the local Proud Boys. Charles, 34, out of North Carolina. It says here, from at least in or around November 2020, Tarrio used his platform as the leader to publicly post statements about the results of the election. On November 20th, November 6th, so that's after the election, he says, the media accuses us of wanting a civil war. So there's some bad language in some of this, so we'll fast forward through some of it. He's posting stuff on the internet is basically what they're saying here. From at least on or around November 2020, Proud Boys, Nordian, Biggs, and Real, they used their statement to post stuff on Twitter. These are all Twitter posts, really. December 12th, Tarrio and other members then, they said they were going to the Million MAGA rally. The December 12th rally was organized as a protest to the presidential election. On December 12th, Proud Boys were involved in an altercation in which Proud Boys were injured. Tarrio on December 12th participated in the theft and destruction of a banner that read Black Lives Matter. Ugh. On December 17th, Tarrio posted a message on social media where he said that I'm the person responsible for the burning of that banner. December 19th, they announced the Stop the Steal protest. Tarrio and a handful of other Proud Boys created a new chapter of the Proud Boys. This small group included a number of those guys. Then on January 4th, on January 4th, Tarrio, oh, well, that's interesting. On January 4th, Tarrio was arrested in Washington, D.C. and charged with destruction of property and 2 large capacity magazines in D.C. Superior Court. He was briefly detained after his arrest. Tarrio was released at 5 p.m. on January 5th after having been ordered to leave D.C. Tarrio didn't leave D.C. He was turned away at the Phoenix Park Hotel, traveled to a nearby underground parking garage where he met with Stuart Rhodes. Oh, the two compatriots come together. Tarrio traveled to a nearby underground parking garage, met with the Oath Keepers, individuals known to the grand jury. Tarrio left D.C., traveled to Baltimore. Subsequently, Tarrio designated MOSD leaders and other individuals known to the grand jury to carry out their objectives. Here's the conspiracy. From in or around December 2020 through January 2021, So Tarrio wasn't even there on January 6th, from what I'm gathering, right? He left there, traveled to Baltimore, and he was running the insurrection from Baltimore. Oh, what a joke. All right, so here is the conspiracy. All these 5 guys, they did knowingly conspire, confederate, and agree to oppose by force the authority of the United States government and to delay the execution of any laws of the United States. Wow. Here they're hindering the delay of the execution of the 12th Amendment. How did they do it? Well, they carried out the conspiracy through the following manner and means. All right, all 5 of these guys, they're conspiracy insurrectionists now. How? By encouraging members of the Proud Boys to attend Stop the Steal protest in D.C. Insurrection? Insurrection. Using websites and other electronic communications to raise funds for trips to D.C. Conspiracy, insurrection? Conspiracy, insurrection. Obtaining paramilitary gear. Using concealed tactical vests. Obviously, terrorist activity. Dressing incognito on January 6th rather than wearing Proud Boys logos. Terrorist. Traveling to D.C. prior to the attack. Well, I mean, I guess you have it there, folks. Arrest them. Oh, they have been. Engaging in meetings and using encrypted communications, using programmable handheld radios and encrypted applications, directing and mobilizing, leading members of the crowd onto Capitol grounds. All of that. insurrectionary. Now, here you have some actual criminality, arguably, right? Dismantling metal barricades that had been deployed to demarcate a restricted area, directing or mobilizing people to go onto Capitol grounds, storming past barricades. We call that a little emotive conjugation there, right? Storming past barricades, or like walking past it or storming past it. Like, how do you storm past a barricade? Capitol Police and other law enforcement officers, destroying property and assaulting law enforcement officers. So what are the acts in furtherance of this conspiracy? Well, here's a lot of them. On December 19th, somebody sent a private message. Biggs sent Tarrio a message. He said, Proud Boys recruit losers who want to drink. Let's get radical and get real men. The next day, Tarrio sent another encrypted message to a group called MOSD, which included a number of people, and they were Nationally Rally Planning Committee. Person 3 posted a message. You like how some of these people, Person 3. I assume that most people at the protest will be at the Capitol given what's going on. And so they're sending messages back and forth. They create a marketing council. December 22nd, Tarrio created another encrypted messaging group, sending messages back and forth. Nordian created an online crowdfunding campaign to get donations for protective gear and comms gear. Tarrio posted a message on a prospecting group where he said the DC trip would consist of 2 groups and that no one should be in colors. So they're all planning a little field trip, I guess. December 29th, Tarrio posted a message explaining how this all works. Another message December 29th, December 30th. Then January hits. They're posting messages. Another encrypted chat. Group had 65 people in it. Nordian has photographs of family members and starts booking flights. January 3rd, as efforts to plan for J6 intensified, Tarrio stated that he wanted to wait until January 4th to make final plans. He posted saying, I didn't hear notes until then. Donahoe creates a new message. January 4th comes on. January 5th comes on. New messaging chat. There's a group message that says boots on the ground. It's supposed to be used by Proud Boys members who are actually in DC. It's now late at night, January 5th, 5:25 p.m. Biggs posts a member to Boots on the Ground group that says, just trying to get our numbers so we can plan accordingly for tonight and go over tomorrow's plan. Biggs posts another message at 5:52 p.m., just a short 30 minutes later, says, quote, we are trying to avoid getting into any crap tonight. Tomorrow's the day. I'm here with Rufio and a good group. Somebody else posts a message. Pizzola posts a message, says at 8:00 p.m. that night, anybody need comms programmed? Hit me up. January 5th, almost 8:30, MOSD member who's in DC posts a message to that group. Says, quote, everyone needs to be at the Washington Monument at 10 a.m. tomorrow. Do not be late. Do not wear colors. Details will be laid out at the pre-meeting. Come out as a patriot. Same message is sent at 8:28. At 9:03 p.m., Rail notifies Nordian and Biggs and others that he's got to DC. 9:09, person 2 broadcasts a message saying, stand by for the shared channel and the shared Zello channel. No colors, be decentralized, and use good judgment. 9:17, Biggs posts a message, says, quote, we had just a meeting with a lot of guys. Info should be coming out soon. Also, just spoke with Enrique. 9:20 p.m. comes along. Tarrio gets added to the messengers group. He's now in the new MOSD leaders group. 9:20 comes along. Biggs posts a message, says, we have a plan. What's the plan so I can pass it to my guys? Biggs responds, I give Enrique the plan. 12:01 a.m. The day is fresh, January 6th, bright and early in the morning. Tarrio posts a message on the new MOSD leaders group. At 12:03, Donahoe posts stand by and then reposted the instructions that had been posted previously. 6:37 a.m., Donahoe posts the message, says, are we going to do commander's briefing before they 10 a.m.? And they're still trying to figure out what to do. On January 6th at 10 a.m., a group of approximately 100 Proud Boys gathered near the Washington Monument. Consistent with the directive, the group of men standing were not wearing colors, and they were holding walkie-talkie style communications. Shortly after, Biggs led the group away from the rally and were taking a place up near the Washington Monument. Nordian and Briggs marched the group. 12 p.m. Donahoe posted a message on the crap. We are with 200 to 300 PBS, must mean Proud Boys. Shortly before 12:53, Biggs and others led the group back to the first street. The entrance was small, and he gets a megaphone. Biggs was approached by an individual whose identity is known to the grand jury. The individual put one arm around Biggs' shoulder and spoke to him. 1 minute later, the individual crossed the barrier, restricted access to the Capitol grounds. This was the first barrier protecting the Capitol grounds breached on January 6th. All right. So who is that person? Is that Ray Epps? Was that Ray Epps? Biggs was approached by an individual whose identity is known to the grand jury. Individual put one arm around Biggs' shoulder and crossed the barrier that restricted the Capitol grounds. I think that might actually be Ray Epps. Let's see if we can pull up the Ray Epps video. And I think that was actually on Rumble. I think that may be Ray Epps. I'm not positive. I'll try to pull that up. We may have to come back to that. Let's go back to the indictment because I don't want to get too distracted on this. All right. So immediately after the breach, my point here on this is that whole side breach, that individual who leans in and whispers something, pretty sure that was Ray Epps. Now, why is that relevant? We're going to find out in a minute. Immediately after the breach, Nordian, Biggs, and Donahoe, they assembled the crowd. They charged the Capitol. They crossed the barriers. Other members of the crowd, they broke through metal barricades. Biggs unlawfully advanced towards the Capitol. Within minutes, others like real Donahoe and Pizzolo were there. They moved to the front. Remember, we don't see any Enrique Tarrio name in here, do you? He's not there. While standing in the West Plaza, Biggs took another video. It says, "We've just taken the Capitol." They deployed the mace yet? Somebody asks. Pizzola moved towards the front of the line and ripped away a Capitol police officer's shield. And he's physically engaging with them. Shortly before 2 p.m., Nordian and Biggs moved back towards the Capitol. They're near a set of concrete stairs. Donahoe pushed forward at the top of the flight of stairs. They're shouting, "We ain't stopping. We ain't effing stopping." 2:13. Pizzola uses the riot shield to break a Capitol building window. 2:14, they go through the adjacent doors. 2:36, Tarrio now. We see Tarrio, right? He's not there. Made a public post on social media. After I finish watching this, I'll make a statement about my arrest. But for now, I'm enjoying the show. Do what must be done. Hashtag we the people. Right? Now, he was released and he went to Baltimore. He was released, hung around D.C., and then went to Baltimore. So he's now posting on social media. But he's not there. Nordian entered the Capitol 2:37. Tarrio 2:38 makes another public post. "Don't effing leave." 2:39, Tarrio responds to a question posed by Proud Boys members. "Are we militia yet?" Tarrio said, "Yep." Tarrio posted 2 additional messages, says, "Make no mistake," and then, quote, "We did this." Tarrio's not even there. What's he doing? After re-entering the Capitol, Biggs and other Proud Boys entered and traveled within the Senate chamber. 2:41, Tarrio posts again, "Proud of my boys and my country." Nordian and Biggs are moving in and out of the Capitol. Tarrio posts a message that reads 1776 and, quote, "Revolutionaries are now at the Rayburn building," which was the House of Representatives building. Person 1 sends a text message to Tarrio. "Brother, you know we made this happen. I'm so proud of my country today." Tarrio responded, "I know." 11:16 p.m. after the night's over, Tarrio posted a message on social media that featured a video of a masked man resembling Tarrio wearing a flowing black cape saying "premonition." That's Enrique for us. So now we see the 2 counts. We've got count 2, conspiracy to obstruct an official proceeding. Count 3, obstruction, aiding and abetting. These are all the counts. We're not going to go through these in depth, right? These are all just explaining what the law that was violated was. Destruction of government property. Let's see. What did they break? A black metal fence causing damage of more than $1,000. So that's the fence. So some barricades they got charged with. Here, this is a window. So we can actually see the property. So one's a black metal fence is what they got charged with. Count 5 is aiding and abetting civil disorder. Delayed affected the proceedings. Black metal fence was one property. Senate wing door window, another property. We have here, throwing a water bottle at law enforcement. So the assault here, okay, so this is what I'm talking about. Oh my gosh, this is the assault. All right, just so if you want to know what the violent assault was here, assault, it's a felony. Count 2 of this indictment, we see all 5 of these people did forcibly assault, resist, impose, impede, intimidate, interfere with an officer. Why? By throwing a water bottle at law enforcement. That's the charge. Count 8 is throwing a water bottle at law enforcement. It's a felony. It's true. It is true. Yeah, I mean, you can't do that to police. Like, that's crazy. You can't throw stuff at police. It's nuts. But they didn't arrest all of the BLM protesters for any of that. I don't know, charge them with felonies for throwing water bottles. Good Lord. One count. So just so you're aware, right? Now, the other counts may be more serious. Let's see. Here's another one. They did make physical contact with that officer while they were engaged in the performance of their duties. So that's count 9. No water bottle on that one. Count 10, robbery of personal property. So let's see. Attempted to take property from a Capitol Hill police officer. That's what Pizzola did. Okay, so our aggravated assault, or our assault charge, was just all about the water bottle. Electoral proceeding vote. Yep, that's the violent assault. All we've got. Okay, so that is the indictment now for the Proud Boys. Now, what's so curious about all of these different indictments? What's so curious about this is Enrique Tarrio, he's sort of acknowledged to have been a Fed informant. Okay, this is not even unusual. This is basically in the open. Here, Global News from the AP was reporting the Proud Boys leader, Enrique Tarrio, was a prolific FBI informant. Isn't that convenient that he wasn't there when everybody else got arrested and he's just like texting? He got arrested the night before for wrecking a sign. Yeah. And then now he was conveniently in Baltimore. Turns out he's a pretty big FBI informant, has been for some time. Here's the story over from Global News. We can see this came back out on January 27, 2001. And 2021. Enrique Tarrio, the leader of the Proud Boys, has a past as an informer for federal and local law enforcement, repeatedly working undercover for investigators after he was arrested in 2012. According to a former prosecutor and a transcript of the 2014 federal proceeding obtained by Reuters. It's weird. Everywhere you look, there's undercover feds involved in this whole stinking thing. Everywhere. It doesn't matter who it is. And especially the people that they're charging with seditious conspiracy. Weird. In Miami, the hearing, federal prosecutor and FBI agent and Tarrio's own lawyer described his undercover work and said he had helped authorities prosecute more than a dozen people in various cases involving drugs, gambling, and human smuggling. Tarrio, in an interview with Reuters on Tuesday, denied working undercover or cooperating. Says, I don't know any of this, he said. When asked about the transcript, I don't recall any of this, Tarrio said. Law enforcement officials and the court transcript contradict Tarrio's denial. In a statement to Reuters, the former federal prosecutor in Tarrio's case, Vanessa Singh Johannes, confirmed that he, quote, he cooperated with local and federal law enforcement to aid in the prosecution of those running other separate criminal enterprises, ranging from running marijuana grow houses in Miami to operating pharmaceutical fraud schemes. Tarrio, age 36, high figure, organizes and leads the right-wing Proud Boys. Records uncovered by Reuters are startling because they show that a leader of the far-right group, now under intense scrutiny by law enforcement, was previously an active collaborator with criminal investigators. Isn't that convenient? Police arrested Tarrio early January when he arrived at the city 2 days earlier before the Capitol Hill riots, charged with possessing 2 high-capacity rifle magazines and burning a BLM flag. D.C. court said, you better get out of here. And he didn't even show up or take part in the Capitol insurrection. But he got charged with seditious conspiracy for posting some social media comments about it. Isn't that convenient? Meanwhile, what happened to my mouse? I think my mouse is dead. Hang on. I think everything else is still working, but my mouse is not functioning. And I thought I changed the battery. Hang on one second. Don't go anywhere. I'll be back. I'm hopeful it's just the mouse problem. Otherwise, we may have a bigger problem here. But I'm pretty sure I just changed this old battery here. I think everything else is still working. Hopefully we're still live here. But here's the mouse. Here's the battery. Okay, I see a light. It's good news. Please work. There it is. Hey, it's working. I just changed that battery too. It's brand new. Garbage. All right. So, the heck was I talking about here? Yes, Enrique Tarrio. Enrique Tarrio is very curious fella. Thank you for the mouse fund. Yeah, thank you. There's all this moving around. The batteries just run out. So we have Enrique Tarrio. My point on all of this, my friends, is just what a stinking joke this is. Everywhere we go, there is a constant Fed presence. The transcript from 2014 shines new light on Tarrio's past connection. During the hearing, the prosecutor and Tarrio's defense attorney asked a judge to reduce the sentence previously, and they are literally everywhere. So we go back to the mind map, and this is what we're looking at. Okay, so now the Proud Boys are part of the seditious conspirators, but one of them is absolutely a former Fed or current Fed. Don't even know. But that's Enrique Tarrio. And we read through the release. We read through the indictment. We covered all of the Peter Navarro stuff. There were a couple additional things I wanted to mention. We learned that there were going to be, first of all, we had the idea that there were some co-conspirators. Okay, these are a couple names. Ali Alexander, of course, was one of the individuals who was sort of at the center of this, right? A highly active person during this time, and so he's been subpoenaed by the J6 committee. Kashyap Patel, same thing with them. I don't know too much about where sort of the status is with them. Recently, though, we learned that the DOJ is not going to move forward with charges against these two guys, which was a little bit of a surprise, right? Because we were thinking that they wanted to take this thing all the way up to Donald Trump, but they're not moving forward with charges against Mark Meadows, which was Trump's former chief of staff, or Dan Scavino, which is Trump's former comm person. And the J6 committee was not real happy about this. So we learned over the weekend that they're not actually going to be pursuing charges against both of those guys for some reason. And the J6 committee came out, of course, unhappy about it. They posted this over the weekend, or I think this was on Friday, on June 3rd. Benny Thompson and Liz Cheney came out and they said, while today's indictment of Peter Navarro, which happened on Friday, was the correct decision by the Justice Department, we find the decision to reward Mark Meadows and Dan Scavino for their continued attack on the rule of law puzzling. Mr. Meadows and Mr. Scavino unquestionably have relevant knowledge about President Trump's role in the effort to overturn 2020 and the events of J6. We hope the department provides greater clarity on this matter. Talking about the DOJ, I would like some more clarity on that too. I thought that they were going to indict everybody. What are they doing? Why are they allowing Mark Meadows and Dan Scavino a little opportunity to scoot on out of here? It's curious. They say, Mr. Scavino, they say if the department's position is that either or both of these men have absolute immunity from appearing before Congress because they worked for Trump, that question is the focus of pending litigation. As the Select Committee has argued in district court, Mark Meadows' claim that he's entitled to absolute immunity is not correct or justified based on the DOJ memoranda. They say no one is above the law. So Liz Cheney, Benny Thompson, they want indictments. It sounds like they want indictments against Mark Meadows, right? That's the takeaway. They wanted to see him indicted. They wanted to see Dan Scavino indicted. They want all of Trump's former people literally indicted, and they were not indicted for some reason. We'll have to see what happens there. So now we have to compare and contrast, right? What's the difference? What's the distinguishing factor between Mark Meadows, Dan Scavino, and Peter Navarro and Steve Bannon? Why the difference? Why did they get indicted but not the other two guys? Is it immunity? Is it proximity to their time in office? You know, Bannon was out long before those other two guys, right? They were still there near the end. So maybe they're sort of within the shield of protection. Don't know. But that is what the mind map is looking like. Now, I referenced this. I wanted to make sure that we talk about some of the arguments that I think we'll see a lot more of coming out here on the Thursday event. Here's just a quick preview of some of the main themes that I think we're going to see a lot of. And I'm going to, of course, continue to expand on this as the week drags on. But first and foremost, the big theme has always been that Trump incited the insurrection by using the word fight. Remember that? Fight, 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 fight. They said that he said that word, and that was the trigger, literally, to go start the insurrection. So we're going to hear a lot more of that. I'm sure we're going to see a lot more closely related of this language, highly coordinated, highly organized. Okay, if you read through the media, you see that everywhere right now. Liz Cheney is going to be hitting that over the head. Highly organized, highly coordinated, because that's all conspiracy language, and that's what they want to get out of it. So I think those two will be closely related. There's also going to be a new allegation, I think, or, you know, kind of a continual allegation that Donald Trump was maneuvering the levers of power in order to gain an advantage. Okay. In other words, he was making certain directions, certain arguments towards the National Guard or the DOD or whatever in order to sort of reallocate the levers of the federal military, in other words, in order to seize the nation. We'll see some letters. I think there was one letter from a Trump person named Christopher Miller, who is floating around Twitter, and I forgot to attach it on here, but I think that will come out. Liz Cheney over the weekend came out and talked about this as being an ongoing threat. I think I have that clip. I'm not sure if it's going to play, but Liz Cheney, yeah, here's what she said over the weekend. Let's see if this will play.
What you have found as a committee will somehow grab the American people by the lapels and say, wake up, you have to pay attention.
I am. You know, the threat, and it's an ongoing threat. You know, we are not in a situation where former President Trump has expressed any sense of remorse about what happened.
So two things there, really. One, she, of course, recognizes, and I think that journalist also recognizes, nobody cares. Nobody's paying attention to this. He's like, can you just shake them by their lapels? There's like a bunch of people out there who aren't melting down over this thing still. It's going to be hard to get people jazzed up over this again. I mean, think of all the different, you know, catastrophes we have lurking around at every corner. This is old news. We've got inflation now, World War III, Ukraine. We've got monkeypox. We've got all sorts of new threats. Are people still concerned about this? Liz Cheney says it's ongoing. Is it really ongoing? I mean, how ongoing is this thing going to be? So that was Liz. I think we're going to see a lot more of that language. You know, we have to act now. It's urgency. Time is of the essence. If we don't do something, it could be the end of American democracy. A lot of that language. And then a big issue that I've had throughout this entire thing is the conflation of these two concepts. The idea being that you can legally investigate and pursue legal mechanisms to use the law to your advantage without being an insurrectionist. You can do that. I know it's shocking to a lot of people out there, but you can do that. You know, if you're charged with a crime, okay, and you're a defendant and you're fighting really hard within the ethical legal boundaries to have your case dismissed, right? You're trying to, you know, you hire our office at the R&R Law Group. We help everybody in Arizona. If you're charged with a crime in the state of Arizona, you don't have to live here. But let's say you hire us. Okay, one of the things that we do is we do interviews with the police officers. And oftentimes those get pretty contentious. Okay, we call them up and we say, you said our client did this, but they didn't really do that, did they? And here's how we know that. And isn't it true that you blah, blah, blah. And that's, I guess, undermining the police. I mean, really, right? It's undermining their credibility. It's undermining their authority. It is challenging their interpretation of the law. It's questioning everything that they do. You're allowed to do that in this country. Okay, it's called due process. You're allowed to investigate mechanisms in order to gain an advantage in the political sphere. You're allowed to do that. Okay, so when Donald Trump is investigating this and he's saying, and his legal counsel or his offices are saying, gosh, I wonder how we interpret this rule and how this all works. That's all legitimate and all legal. You're allowed to do that stuff. Now, what happens when these arguments move forward is they will conflate the two. They'll say Donald Trump was trying to investigate through his legal counsel whether Mike Pence counting the votes could do one thing. Right? There are a lot of questions around this that are legitimate. And we talked all about it as the election litigation continued to heat up previously, right? And they're talking about changing some of the rules because it is complicated, right? And we went through it and we sort of deciphered and teased out what Mike Pence can do and what he can't do. And it was a lot of heavy lifting and some pretty, heavy constitutional framework type stuff. But if Trump's team is investigating that, it's perfectly allowed. You're allowed to do that. Now, seizing a country by force or those, right, that's a whole separate category. But my point is what they're doing is they're conflating the two. They're saying that you, if you're a criminal defense lawyer and you ask that police officer's questions in my hypothetical and you're rude to him or you're trying to maybe get an advantage in your case and win, that you're like an insurrectionist now? You're somebody who's challenging the expected process that they would like you to follow. And if you don't comport with that, you're now an enemy of American democracy. Ridiculous. Like, it's ridiculous. But you're going to see a lot of that, right? Donald Trump had a phone call with somebody about this. Wow. He's the president at the executive office. He's allowed to do those things. He'd be a friggin' moron if he wasn't, okay? If he was just sitting there. Oh, I guess I lost the election. No, I guess that's it. Well, we wrap up and go home, I guess. Well, good fight there, Joe Biden. I guess we'll just stop. Right? Like, that's not how this works. But the Democrats are trying to change that argument, right? And after they get blown out and the Republicans come back and they say, well, quit your crying, Democrats. Quit your crying. You didn't lose that election and this, you won, and whatever. Right? They're going to say, well, we want recounts and this is not fair and all this. It's good. The whole narrative's going to flip. But the Republicans, because they're weak and spineless, are very unlikely to do anything analogous to what the Democrats have done here. The Democrats will form these fake committees and they'll investigate everybody until they drop dead. Republicans will just well, we'd like to be friends with you guys still. I mean, can we come to your cocktail parties? You have better parties than we do. Nobody even likes us over here. Can we come hang out with you guys still in DC? Which is, I think, where that will go. So those are the 5 arguments that I expect to see, or the 5 main buckets of category, sort of themes, I think is probably the best word to describe that. A lot of themes coming out of there that are going to be more rehashing of what we've already heard. I really, really doubt that we're going to see a video of Donald Trump and Mike Pence like colluding to manipulate, American military heads in order to secure levers of power. I'll eat my words if I'm wrong about that. And we'll stream it live. And if it comes out and at the end of this thing, it's like, wow, there really was a big conspiracy. And look, folks. Like, I can understand the difference between saying what happened on January 6th was not great, but that's a different conversation than an insurrection taking over America, right? Like, that's a whole different conversation. And doesn't it just sound ridiculous now? Like, doesn't it just feel ridiculous? Is it just me? The whole thing feels ridiculous. Like, we fast forward, like, after everything we know, there are still people here that think the country was almost taken over. For real? What? All right. So I don't really know. Maybe there are people. That is it for the mind map. I've got a ton of notes. So what I want to do is continue to fill this out. I've got the whole, if you remember, if you've been a part of the show for a while, we've got several different January 6th segments where we actually went through all of the video where the officer tapped the other officer on the shoulder and let everybody in on the one side of the Capitol building. We've got all sorts of double standards in here. We've got the Ray Epps saga. We've got, FBI failures. I'm very very concerned about like the Sergeant of Arms. Who are these people? We have the letter from DC Muriel Bowser, the DC Mayor Muriel Bowser on January 5th, rejecting additional support and National Guard troops. We have that clip of the fight clip. There's a political clip that somebody has created of showing all of the other Democrats saying the word fight, 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 how many times they say it. When Trump said it, that was an insurrection. When they said it, not even a big deal. Oh yeah, we have the Legoland story. Remember the FBI dorks? They went and they found an FBI. Somebody had the Capitol building. You see that right there? And they had the Capitol building in their, hotel. And the FBI's like, they were plotting. They were going to build a Lego set and then take over America. They wrote it in their search warrant or something like that. It's like, oh my gosh, you people are so dumb. The door being open. Yeah. So there's a lot more to unpack here. We've got the deaths. Yeah. We have, Brian Sicknick and the J6ers who lost their lives. I mean, there's a lot. This whole thing can really, really continue to expand, and it certainly will. We're going to continue to do it. Now, I don't know if we're going to be able to get a full insurrection week out of this story. We'll see. I don't know if I can take it, but that's basically what the media is talking about. So we've got our big hearing on Thursday, and we'll be live streaming that. So if you're around on Thursday and want to join us watching these goobers just going through their story again. Well, I hope you join us. We had a couple super chats that came in today, and so I want to hit those up before we wrap it up for the day. I saw a couple come in from Tara Rayner. Thank you, Tara. She said, hey, Tario was arrested when he arrived in D.C., I believe. Yeah, and so he was there. So Tara, you were ahead of me. I forgot all about that, actually, at the start of this show. I totally forgot, right? He wasn't even there. He was arrested the day before. And he was text messaging his guys. Like, he's probably sitting there on the beach with a Mai Tai or whatever. And he's with the umbrella in there. He's like, yeah, take over the Capitol building. Ah! His FBI maintenance guy, probably hanging out with Michael Sussman over there and just having conversations about all this, laughing it up. That's from Tara Rayner. And she said arrested 2 days before, and he didn't even attend. It's hilarious. But he's the leader of the seditious conspiracy. We have Tall Skinny Geek just super chatting in for the Mouse Fund. Thank you, Tall Skinny Geek. I know. I literally just replaced it. So I had one of those moments where I was thinking about, am I going crazy? Because I'm 99% sure that I changed that out and it just died. And I'm not that mousy, right? I'm not mousing all over the place. It should have lasted a lot longer than that. But thank you for the support, Tall Skinny Geek. Jim Carter, no question, but with a nice super chat. Thank you, Jim. Thanks for being here and supporting the work that we're doing. I appreciate it. Ronnie Cole says January 6th was a sit-in. Yeah, it's just people going and protesting. Ronnie, it was a lot of things. A sit-in, I could say, yeah, there's probably some sitting in happening there. Didn't the we'll just leave it at that. Thank you, Ronnie. Sledge in Wedge says seems to be the status quo with the alphabet soup. 3.14 super chat dono there from Sledge and Wedge. Seems to be the status quo with the alphabet group. Yeah, they're not that competent as of late. I mean, the FBI has really sort of botched a lot of different things many times over the last several months. Let's jump over to the locals community and let's see what we've got here. Vientikis is sharing the J6. This is a horrific image. I don't know what this is, but we'll put this on the screen. This is the J6 committee. I don't know who these people are, but those are like scary people. Those faces are scaring me. Let's go on to the next one. Here, this is from Vientikis. Says Ray Epps. The capital part is at 1. There it is. You can see Ray whispering into someone's ear. Yes. Okay. So this is from Vientikis. He says, that's why I stopped using wireless devices. The batteries always die at the wrong time. Also, turn on a feature to reveal the mouse location when you can press control. I need it on all the time. Oh, well, thanks. Vientikis is so helpful. He's pulling up videos and he's giving me mouse advice. Here, let's see. This is Ray Epps. And I think, yeah, I'm going to add this to the mind map at some point. And so I don't think I've got any audio on right now, which is good. So Ray, that's him the night before screaming at everybody. Let's go into the build. Let's go in, right? Fed. Now doing the same thing, screaming. There it is. Hey. break their way in. Now, it does get, a little bit rowdy there and a little bit violent, but it is Ray Epps who's right there. And I think that's the person that they're referencing. They're saying a person known to the grand jury whispered in his ear, and then it all happened. What did he whisper? Why wasn't he charged? He was there. Very curious. Thank you for that link, Vianticus. And what did I do with my window? There it is. All right. Also from JC the Music Man, Jeremy's here, and he says, Rob, your analysis of DOJ's January 6 case has revealed the true intentions and purpose of the massive delays. You've actually proven the DOJ has the resources and capabilities to timely process the cases. I think I did prove that. I mean, I really, I don't know if anybody else has proven that, but I mean, my goodness, it's like a joke. I mean, we went through the numbers. I did a compare and contrast of the actual number of Scottsdale cases. I said, even if you say that there were, let's say 20% felonies of the 800 cases, okay, that are going through January. Okay, 20% felonies. What is that number of the 800? It's not a lot. So now you say felonies are more complex. Okay, you've got 2 conspiracy charges. So now you've got some really complex felonies with multiple co-defendants and multiple charges. All right, big deal. 2 of them. The rest of these are trespasses. And of the 20% that might be felonies, I mean, give me a break. Any major city metropolitan area can process that look up the data. I mean, look up the records. How many felony cases do you think that Maricopa County processes every month? New cases. Do you think it's 800 felonies? A month at least. The DOJ can handle this no problem, but they don't want to. They want to beat it into the bush, beat it into the ground, beat our faces into it. Says the DOJ is intentionally stalling on all of the cases to use the whole event as a political tool. They have to find a way to eliminate the Electoral College. I'm surprised Liz doesn't realize that would make Montana and other low population states irrelevant. Well, they don't care about any of, representation. Think they care about that? They don't care about that. They don't care about you voting. No, they care about eternal power. That's all. Mr. MVP is here, says, I'm watching a real insurrection unfold before my eyes with an invasion here in our borders. Says the USA is for sale to the highest bidder. Renee shared an article, Ion Energy. Let's see what this one is. Said this one is family of Bill Clinton advisor who admitted, whoa, this is a juicy meatball over here from the Daily Mail. Exclusive, this one says. Family of Bill Clinton advisor who admitted Epstein into the White House 7 times has blocked release of files detailing the death scene after he was found hanging from a tree with a shotgun blast at a ranch 30 miles from his home. What? Family of Bill Clinton advisor who admitted Epstein into the White House 7 times blocked release of files detailing the death scene after he was found hanging from a tree with a shotgun blast. Okay. Wow. Top Clinton advisor Mark Middleton died by suicide. What? That's a suicide? Perry County Sheriff said Middleton was discovered hanging from a tree with a shotgun blast to his chest. What? And now the local Arkansas sheriff is interpreting that to mean he can't talk or release any details of the suicide. Have I lost my mind? The family of a top advisor admitted they have petitioned a judge to prevent pictures of his death scene being released under the FOIA Act. The guy's hanging from a tree with a shotgun. That's a suicide? What is this? I don't even know what I'm reading, to be honest. What the heck is going on here? Okay. Thank you for sharing that. I'm going to have to take a much deeper look at that. That came over from Renee, Ion, and so, yeah, look, it's like a weird thing, right? The joke is constantly that if you cross the Clintons, you sort of end up dead with 2 gunshot wounds to the back of the head, and they call it a suicide. It's very strange how that works, but apparently it happened there in this case. Yikes. All right. We also have one more from Jeff. Jumpin' Jeff says, is it insurrection if you have to do something with ballot boxes? And the answer is, if you have to ask, is it an insurrection? It's probably an insurrection. Okay. Everything's an insurrection these days, Jeff. Are the legal voters insurrectionists or are the stuffers the insurrectionists? Looking for some clarification. I don't really know, Jeff. Everybody's an insurrectionist now. If you question any official narrative, you are part of the problem. And that's from Jumpin' Jeff over on Locals. And so thank you to my local supporters, my friends over there. Chatting away, JC the Music Man, Radicy is also there. Vienticus Prime is in the house. It's good to see you guys. Miss Lucky's here. Hey, Miss Lucky and Sergeant Bob. Give my shout outs to Sergeant Bob, Miss Lucky. Ion Energy. And I saw Sugar Britches. There's Sugar Britches. It's good to see everybody. Sergeant Bob's in the house as well. Miss Lucky and Sergeant Bob are over there. It's good to see you guys. All right. Well, I think that is it, my friends, for the day. Patricia Molina with another super chat says, any mention of Babbitt, the only person killed in the J6 event. I can't believe this circus. Yeah. So Patricia, so I do have that queued up. I have the Ashley Babbitt, and there was another Susan Boyland, I think was the other woman who died. Susan Boyland. I made a video about her also, right? She was it Boylan? I may be getting her name wrong. I apologize on that. Roseanne Boylan. I think it may be Roseanne Boylan. Yeah, it was Roseanne Boylan was the other one who died. But yes, right, all of that needs to be added to the mind map. There's a lot of this, and this goes pretty deep and pretty long, and we'll see where it goes. I mean, I think it's going to really ramp up. As I've said, I think this is largely a political tool to continue on the political spectacle of J6. They really can't let that die. They've got not a lot else to talk about right now. And so I think that all of those need to be certainly added and memorialized, because there was a lot about that, right? I mean, they gave, look, and I don't want to belittle Brian Sicknick or his loss, right? Every death is a painful death, but they gave him sort of this congressional internment ceremony. I mean, it was like a senator's celebration, and they blamed it all on the J6ers. Turns out none of that was true, right? He very likely died from natural causes, right? Is what they're saying. It's what the coroner said, not me. Tara, I missed one of Tara Rayner's. Sorry about that, Tara. She just reminded me. It's the worst. You have to submit a super chat to say you missed a super chat. I feel like the biggest jerk in the world. All right. So she said, did you see the vote presentation in AZ on the 2nd? So I did not see it. And Tara, look, I know there's been so much stuff going on with that. I can't talk about literally any of that on YouTube. Like, it's one of the hardest policies that they've got. Between that and the medical misinformation, which I actually gotten struck for because I walked that line a little bit too closely. But they are hard on any of the anything that's like backwards looking on the election. If you look up the YouTube community guidelines, anything that's backward looking towards the 2020, they specify it in the community guidelines. Don't even talk about it. Now, forward facing stuff you're allowed to do. So if it's a backward facing sort of analysis on 2020 election in particular, it's called out in the rules. I really can't even write it on YouTube. It's ridiculous. And I know it's ridiculous, but it's just part of the rules. It's part of the rules here. And we have to sort of play ball until there's bigger alternatives where we don't have to do that. And I'm still hopeful that comes around soon. But thank you for that, Tara. And David Kretschner said, with a nice don't for a very good man. Well, thank you, David. That's very nice of you to say. I don't know about that, but that's very nice of you. And I do appreciate the support. And that's from David Kreitzer. Glad that you're here, sir. We got Miguel Labra also is here with no question. Thank you, Miguel Labra. And then Tara Rayner also said it's on Rumble. Watch. It's very interesting. So it's Arizona. It's a presentation that took place over on Rumble. So that's from Tara Rayner. I'd follow that suggestion. If you want to learn more about that topic, certainly. And there's going to be a lot of that. I mean, the one thing that I didn't get to last week, and there's so much stuff to cover that I want to get to that just sort of falls off in priority, is the CISA, right? The CISA came out. I actually started slides for this, but on Friday they came out and they notified us about all these dangers about Dominion software, because it was all now officially vetted by a very smart scientist, political guy named J. Alex Halderman, and he came out with this big report. It's apparently valid enough for CISA, the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency Act, whatever it is, said, yeah, we probably should look at this stuff. And now we can talk about it, I guess. So going to be a lot of that. We've got the 2022 elections coming up. I read a headline today that Trump might be announcing on July 4th, right? So that might cause a whole slew of realignment from a lot of the candidates and change the whole game again. We'll see. I'm not so sure that that's going to be the case, but we will certainly see. And that, my friends, I think is it for the day. I think it is. And so we'll go ahead and leave it there. I want to thank everybody for being a part of the show. One more reminder, you can check out the mind map if you'd like to at j6mindmap.com. I wised up and bought a domain, so it should forward you over there. But I appreciated your time with us here today. Thank you to everybody who is supporting the show, excuse me, on YouTube, becoming a member, submitting a super chat. If you're watching the show after the fact, there's now a super thanks button where you can support the show that way. If you join us over on watchingthewatchers.locals.com, also a very good place to be. Amazing people over there, share stories throughout the day, and it's a good place to be. Also appreciate you supporting my law firm, the R&R Law Group. We're a criminal defense law firm located in Scottsdale, Arizona. We've got a mission to help good people charged with crimes find safety, clarity, and hope in their cases, and beyond that, in their lives. And I appreciate your referrals to our team. We really are passionate about the work that we do. We have a lot of fun here on YouTube where we get to talk some of the political stuff. What are these prosecutors doing outside in the world? But that's what we do on a daily basis, boots on the ground in the courtrooms throughout the state of Arizona. So if you ever find anybody, hopefully you don't, who needs help with a criminal case, that's what we do. We offer free case evaluations. All the links are down in the description below. And I appreciate you thinking about us for those referrals. It means we get to spend more time together here rather than me going around and going to lunches or going to networking events and stuff like that. And so I really do appreciate it. It makes our time very useful here. And that is it for us for the day. We've got a lot more to get to tomorrow. I don't know what else they're going to be talking about. It sort of feels like to me, the media has just put up the guardrails for Insurrection Week. We might have a lot of drips, right? They sort of plan this stuff, right? Like they didn't just say, we're just going to do it on Thursday. Probably going to be a couple drips. Probably going to be like this slow campaign to build up enthusiasm for Thursday. So we'll see what else is out there. But if there are some other headlines, well, we're going to attend to those tomorrow. And I hope you join us on that journey. We'll be back here right about the same time, same place, same location to do it all again. And I hope you join us there. Have a tremendous evening, my friends. Sleep very well. I look forward to seeing you on the next one. Bye-bye.